UN says North America and Europe account for the majority of global cocaine consumption. And this map I'm going to show you now shows you just how the drug gets there. For the North American market, the UN says cocaine is typically transported from Colombia by sea to either Mexico or Central America. From there, it's transported by land to the United States and to Canada. The UN says coke is trafficked to Europe mostly by sea, often in container shipments. Well, our next guest spent 5 years infiltrating an international drug cartel as an undercover agent for the DEA. He thinks the arrests of Barrera and other key criminals in the past couple of weeks show that the war on drugs is finally working. Robert Mazur joins me now by phone. We aren't able to show his face because of death threats from the drug cartels he's helped bring down. You work specifically on the Colombian story and indeed the Colombian pipeline. How significant is this arrest of Barrera today?
Well, this arrest and an arrest like it of what I would consider to be the heads of the snakes is really pivotal in the international cooperative effort to try to have a major effect on these narco-terrorist organizations. Without a free and open and cooperative relationship between many nations, with the U.S. in the military and the intelligence community and the law enforcement community, these types of operations will not succeed, and we will not be able to get the people involved in command and control. That's the key, disrupting command and control, because these people in the leadership positions are attempting to undermine democracies, the institutions within democracies like law enforcement, military, judicial, and legislative systems, and taking out a person at the top. It's the whole mechanism. And
Robert, that was your job, to disrupt these hierarchies. You spent 5 years undercover infiltrating the criminal hierarchy of Colombia's drug cartels. Just briefly describe what you did during that time.
During that time frame, over a period of 2 years, with the help of a few informants, and after putting together a completely new verifiable identity, I was embedded in real businesses, an investment company, mortgage brokerage business, air charter service, jewelry chain, and even a brokerage firm with a seat on the New York Stock Exchange. And I was presented as a mob-connected money launderer out of New York. And I got the opportunity to work my way up through the Medellin cartel, ultimately dealing with the people who were working directly with Pablo Escobar, including one of his principal consigliaries, a lawyer based in Medellin, and also the major distributors who were producing in the United States roughly $20 million a month in 8 different cities. And that doesn't even take into consideration the European routes, which are very, very lucrative, because cocaine sells for 2.5 times there as it does in the United States.
Remarkable stuff. And as you've been talking, we've been taking a look at some of the shots that you sent us of some of the work that you completed during that 5 years. So far as the war on drugs is concerned, it's interested me that whilst over the past couple of days we've seen these significant arrests, and therefore one assumes some progress in the war on drugs, this is at a time that many of the Latin American presidents and leaders have decided it may not be worth waging this war anymore. Prohibition is no good, they say. Legalization is the way forward. Are we making some significant progress at this point?
I think we are making some very significant progress in the last few years. There are many cases similar to the arrest that you announced today. One that your listeners should look for, the last name is Juma, J-O-U-M-A-A. He was a Lebanese-Colombian businessman who was working in conjunction with not just the Mexican cartel and the Colombian cartel, but factions of Hezbollah, and moving throughout the globe huge amounts of drugs and money for the cartels. It's important to note that, I think, that in order to have an effect, we've got to go after command and control. And I get the privilege of working with some of the fine young men and women who are part of the Drug Enforcement Administration, especially their Special Operations Division. And they are working very closely with military and law enforcement, not just in the and intelligence community, not just in the U.S., but in many different nations. We haven't had this kind of global cooperation in years prior, and it's getting better all the time. So I can't embrace the idea of crack cocaine and methamphetamine being a drug that we would condone to be legally marketed through our communities. To me, those drugs are far too powerful to capture the mind and the heart of individuals. We need to do more in the way of education before we ever want to consider legalization, I think.
The thoughts tonight of Robert Mazur, who's a former DEA undercover agent and author of The-Infiltrator, My Secret Life Inside the Dirty Banks Behind Pablo Escobar's Medellin Cartel, talking to you tonight here on the show. Fascinating, sir. Thank you for joining us.